welcome to another episode of Geek Shop. Chris is away, missing in action somewhere. No word from him. Hopefully he's doing well and safe. So you got me today. Today I talk about how I create my comics, what influences me, a studio tour of my place. So let's take a stroll to the Geek Shop. Hi, I'm going to go over some of the books that influenced me when I was trying to get a comic, start drawing my own comics and research everything. I used to have a How to Draw Comics Marvel way. I even had that one John Byrne How to Draw a Comic. I think it was a short version of a book, and I don't know what happened to it. Got rid of it many years ago. Now, one of the books I bought, I used to work at when I was a teenager, worked at a book distribution warehouse. This is before Amazon, way before Amazon. And it was in the middle of nowhere in North Toronto. And I got a job during the summertime during high school. And it had books and everything. And I remember buying tons and tons of books. And this is one of the books I found there. And this is great. It's How to Draw and Sell Comic Strips for Newspapers and Comic Books. And it's by Alan McKenzie. If I remember Alan McKenzie's name, he is a British writer from 2000 AD and other books. And the illustration is first time I ever seen Steve Parkhouse's work. And Steve Parkhouse, maybe I've seen his work in 2000 AD or some other British magazines. But Steve Parkhouse's work is amazing in this book. So this book is very good. As you can see, it's been read a lot of times. The covers and everything, and I don't know what the publication date is, but I bought it when it came out. Publication date is 1987. Wow. Okay, so I bought it at that time. Long time ago. Okay, so this book is very good. Steve Parkhouse, if you look at his illustrations, amazing artist. I think Parkhouse has worked with Alan Moore on a couple of books. Bo Jeffrey's saga, if I remember. Great work. Now, this book, one thing I liked in this book is reading it. Alan McKenzie goes through step by step on comic strips on the early 20s to modern times, and talks about a difference between American comic strips and British comic books. And even manga. Actually, I forgot about that. Even manga he talks about. Now, one thing I liked in this book is Steve Parkhouse and Alan McKenzie go into detail on everything in comics, like perspective, angles to shoot at, angles and perspective, kind of like the same way as John Byrne and John Buscema did, or was it John Buscema, in How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Now, as a teenager looking at this book, I was amazed. I mean, some of his stuff, some of the way they tell stories, and way Steve Parkhouse goes on to tell his stories on how he creates a page and stuff. It's really good. Like in this book, he goes through step by step on his series called The Boxer, which he goes from everything from writing a story to thumbnails to pencils to inks. And one key thing which I found as an artist was he mentions in the book, he mentions like how much of a tight pencils you should do, loose pencils to tight pencils. That was great. And this is the key part which I really liked. At that time, I was trying out my inking, and I wasn't the greatest inker of all time. Barely knew how to use a brush. Read so many articles on how to use pen and nibs, and like any other creative, inspiring mind, I went to the art store, found brushes, found India ink nibs, started using everything. And Steve Parkhouse goes into detail on how he goes and creates a page. And this is the first time I heard about artists using a whiteout or a process white, as he calls it here, to correct his mistakes. And this is the part I found interesting, where he uses an X-Acto knife to go scrape away some of the unused extra ink. Now there is a page in here, I have to find it. He does mention, inking styles, like here, like the American style of inking and continental style of inking and British style of inking. And to be honest, you know what? I didn't even think about that when I was looking at 2000 AD, or let's say EC Comics, or even Marvel Comic, DC Comics. Never thought about that. When he mentioned that, I started looking at the inking in detail and realized, hey, wait a minute, that's a different style of inking. I think the key thing I've noticed with, especially American style inking, is they use a lot of brush, thick brushes, like sable brushes, thick lines and everything. And I've noticed with the British, it's more line work, more pen work. And it was interesting. This book helped me out a lot. I've read this book so many times. So I would highly recommend anyone who's starting out or even experienced, please have a look at this book. And even lettering, a lot of good tips on lettering. Mind you, this is before Micron pencils, Staedtler, Pigma pens, and all those ink pens came out. This is way before that. So it was either calligraphy pens, pen and ink pens, or technical pens. Okay, so this is the book on this. Highly recommended. Please go out and look at it. If you take a look online, there must be copies there or samples there. It's a great book. Now on to the second book, which I bought a while back. Now I didn't buy it because on how to draw, how to process, how to create books. I bought it because of the artist, Dave Gibbons. Love his work. And this is called How Comics Work by Dave Gibbons and Tim Pitcher. It's a nice book. One thing I like about this book is Dave Gibbons goes through details on his co-writer. He goes into detail about how he creates his comics and the processes on creating his books. And come on, it's Dave Gibbons. I mean, just buy it for his art. And Dave Gibbons, to be honest, I haven't read much of his stories that he has written. I did read, what was it? The Martha Washington series, the Liberty series from Dark Horse that he wrote and drew, if I remember. Oh, no, wait, that was Frank Miller. Sorry, Frank Miller. I read his World's Finest, World's Finest. He wrote the story and Steve Rude drew it. So as a writer, I haven't read much of his written stories, but for artwork wise and storytelling wise, this book is amazing. Now, one thing I did find, this, how he lays out his pages and panels and everything, and it's impressive. It's impressive. And his page, like how he lays out a page, I can't, like to see how much time he spends on it. I'm sure he spends way more time on his layouts than I do on drawing my own pages. Now there is a section on when he was doing Watchmen and DC books, and that just blew me away. And he does go into lettering. Now, lettering wise, Dave Gibbons, I mean, he's an all-around artist. He does writing, penciling, inking, lettering. I haven't seen him do any coloring, but his lettering's impressive. Just look at any of his look at this. Look at any of his books. Okay, I know he Watchmen. I think he did do the lettering on Watchmen. My mind's going. I have to check. I have Watchmen somewhere here. Actually, here you go. Watchmen. See? Yep, lettering by Dave Gibbons. Now, lettering wise, I'm not an expert. I gave up lettering years ago because my lettering is illegible, and hate to say it, computers do 100 times better job lettering than I would. So there you go. This is the Dave Gibbons book on how to create comics, write comics, pencil, ink, everything. Highly recommend getting this book. Again, anyone who's into comics and want to know how creators work and stuff, look at this. I mean, this is a layout for a Superman annual, and here it says checklist can be created numerically or visually, as Dave has done here, by ticking off the thumbnails of one line for pencils, then completing the cross for inks. Man, that guy, look at this. Look at this work and look at the final work. Amazing work. Okay, so these are two books I would highly recommend getting if you guys are interested in, this is me, and this is how helped me out creating, helped me out with my comics. Okay, so this is how I create my pages. Now, this might not be the right way or way you might find it easy, but you know what? Find your way of creating your own pages. There's no right or wrong, as long as you get the pages penciled, inked, and it's printable, or you can upload to a website or anywhere else. Do it. You know what? Do it your way. Find your own way, techniques of doing it. These are some of the pages that I have that I've done over the years. First page here. This one was done for the mini comic. This one was mid-90s. 95, 96 for issue 12. This was done on, no joke, on Letraset marker paper. Why? I don't know why. Because at that time, early 90s, comic boards were hard to come by. Blue Line was one of the companies that produced comic paper. They were super expensive at that time. Strathmore, was it 400, 500 series Bristol? Again, was super expensive. So, really didn't want to spend that money to play around with my art and stuff, and so I used Letraset marker paper. This was done using Sharpies, Pigma pens, or Micron or Staedtler pens, and even some a pen and ink. This was done in the 90s, and again, it was done on Letraset marker paper. And later on, I found some comic paper. And this was from, this was Canson, and I did have some Blue Line I found somewhere. As the years went by, more and more comic drawing papers were available everywhere. So, and this is how I roughly rough out my pencils. Sometimes at this stage, I'll just go to ink, and I don't tighten my pencil. Reason why is, and this is a talk I've had with a fellow artist, Tommy O. His name gets mentioned a lot of times in my interview, my video podcast and stuff, because Tom and I have worked for so long. We're really good friends, and we throw ideas and stuff at each other all the time. My problem is, from thumbnails to this stage of penciling to final penciling, I'll be bored of the page. I've been looking at the page for so long. So what I've been learning to do over the years is, from this stage, or even lesser tightness, I go to ink. So this is a sample of a story that was never finished, and unfortunately I do have a lot of stories I started and never finished. This is a story for TikTok Tom. We had finished the full-size book, and this is before Tommy O and I started our massive 600-page zombie book. This is a story I had in mind, and it was involving TikTok Tom, Iggy, and Jack. And to be honest, I don't remember what the story was about at this time, because I'm one of those guys that plots the story out in as I'm going along. Never finished it. Okay, now this is a page from our full-size issue 1. This was done on actually on just regular, I think it was Strathmore Bristol. I did buy Strathmore Bristol. Yeah, it was done on Strathmore, Bristol, using just pencils. The ink work was done by Brett Feschuk. He did the inking on this. I did the tones afterwards. The tones, if you look at it, some of it's yellowing. Some of it was letter tone, and some of it was chalk pack. Now the chalk pack tones were bad because they started yellowing. They were bad. They were cheap tones. They were less than half price of the Strathmore ones, but they yellowed really fast. Now, also marker-wise, at that time in the early 90s, comic art markers weren't that great. I used Sharpies and a couple of other art markers, and as you can tell here, we're giving a halo effect. Now, I mean, visually it looks, it gives an interesting effect, but they weren't that great. So I think Brett used halo markers here, and he did a great job of inking. My style has changed over the years. This one I did very tight pencils. Reason being is I knew Brett was going to ink it, so I thought, you know what, better give all the details and stuff, and Brett did an amazing job. And this is my sample of pen and ink. This was for our Message Zombie book, 600-page book. And yeah, just decided to pull out the pen and ink. Everything was done pen and ink. I liked it. I think I used Croquill nibs on this one. Reason I used Croquill was because I remember reading years ago, reading an interview with George Perez, and he said he used Croquill pens to ink. So I thought, if you know what, love his work, so let me try it. And you know what? After hundreds of Croquill, I'm nowhere near as his art style or inking. Need to practice. Okay, this is another page from our zombie book. This one was inked with brush, and I've been using this pen. I found this pen. It's a Curatek brush pen, and this is a brush pen that I've been using. I think Tom Yo got me onto this. I was using the Pentel brush pens and some of the other brush pens. I know Staedtler made it, Micron made them, but I just did not like the effects I was getting. Now, the Pentel refillable pen was great, but I just, something about it I just did not like. This one I've been using for the past 10, 15 years or longer now, and it's been a great pen. It gives you nice effects, everything. Highly recommended, highly recommended. I used to get these at the art store. Now, unfortunately in Toronto, there's not that many art stores around. So I've been ordering them through Amazon. Highly recommended. And again, Letratone. This is one of the last few sheets of Letratone I had lying around. You know what? I wish I could get tones now. If I could get tones in Canada, I'd be using tones and doing old school drawings all the time. Unfortunately, now I have to rely on Clip Studio to do all my tonal work. Another page I did for the zombie book. This was again with that same ink pen, and I like it. Nice effects of it. Now I'm going to show you another page, which I show you samples of how I do a page. So now I'm going backwards, but that's fine. So this is how I lay out my stories. What I do is this is the Strathmore thumbnail pad. Now what I did was I created my own templates also, which I do like this. What I did was I took a Strathmore paper, scanned it, cleaned it up, and went into Photoshop, created the lines, made my own templates. Now, the reason I did that was, unlike here, I have more space to write. So as I'm doing my story, I mean, typical comic creator would sit down and type out a story and plan it out and stuff. But you know what? This is me. This is how I work. And what I do is I'll sketch out the story. And as I'm sketching out, I'll write notes and stuff so I know what to do when I'm drawing it, or someone else is drawing it. But this is how I work. So this is a page for the a story called Don't Let Him Go. Introduces a character named Karen, and she's the what do you call it? The gondola what do you call it? Gondola driver or whatever, boat caretaker that takes Tom and the gang to hell. And this is how I thumbnail my pages. It's very rough sketch. Sometimes it's barely invisible, but you know what? I could tell what's going on. So that's the key thing. So from there, what I do is I just go to the paper, and this one was done in blue line. And what I do is I rough it out in blue line and just directly go to ink, no pencil work or anything like that. So this is my art. This is how I create my stories. Hopefully you found it useful or just wanted to know how I create my stories. Thank you for watching, and create more comics, read more comics. Hi, so this is how I create my comics now. I do them more in a digital form. I use a program called Clip Studio. More on the program, just go to Clip Studio Paint's website and it'll give you the information on the program. I did a previous video on how I create some of the pages, so please check that out on our Geek Shop camera, one of the episodes we did. Please check it out. So now, this is how I create my pages. So in Clip Studio, I set up my pages using new, and I set up my pages this way. Again, what I have is a TikTok Tom layout that's set up to a Strathmore Bristol old school 11 by 17 page with the inner dimensions and the bleeds and margins, everything. I have it set up, and depending on how many page count it is, set it up that way. So this is a page from our book called Tonight We Murder. It was a giveaway that we were giving out. It's a preview of our book that's coming out next year, Maneater. So in this page, it's only 8 pages long. Story is 8 pages long. So way I created this story is just I do thumbnails roughly on I have a Huey on drawing tablet, which you'll see in my studio tour video. And what I do is I use that in the stylus and just do rough thumbnails like this. Then from the thumbnails, I go to inks, directly to inks. And I play around and I draw as I ink. So that's why some of my ink work will look rough. But you know what? I've learned to use that technique and adapt to it after years and years of testing it out. So then what I'll do is also play around with tones. And Clip Studio Paint, if you look on the Clip Studio Paint, has a lot of digital tones you could use. And this is how I layer my comic. So this is my digital way of creating comics. This is a quick and simple way. Hi, this is my studio. It's a mess. It's my den area. My space has gotten much smaller. That's my drawing tablet, Huey on drawing tablet, which I set up vertically. My Flash figure, Green Lantern figure, and my comics and our junk around. A lot of I need to clean up. Okay, this is my stairway to my house. This is where my kids and my toys hang around, and one of my bookshelves. And if you could see, it's everything geek oriented. Comics, manga, and more comics. And trust me, this is not all the books I have. My wife complains on how many books I have. This is shelf 1.